All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're back, and just as Chelsea are back in the wins, back on Facebook Live. This is We Ain't Got No History. My name is David, and we'll talk a little bit about Chelsea's long overdue 3-0 victory of Monday night over West Bromwich Albion. Since we haven't done a Facebook chat in some time, I'm sure we'll have plenty of transfer business and Conte questions future to talk about. All the usual goodness that people are interested in. Because, football is always secondary. It's all about transfers and speculation. It's the name of the game around the football media. And then, of course, we'll also look forward to, Hull City on Friday, which is not much of a game to look forward to, but it's still not a game that we have to win. And then, of course, the big game on Tuesday, the first leg of the Champions League round of 16 against Barcelona. That should be an interesting occasion. Ram says he's interested in Kennedy. Of course, he's interested in Kennedy. Who isn't interested in Kennedy? If you're under 22, Ram will always be interested in your how you're doing and your prospects. I do wonder if Michy Batshuayi qualifies, since he's 24, but he is still considered kind of a young prospect, since he hasn't really established himself. But certainly today we saw just what the master plan entailed when Conte convinced, I suppose, the Chelsea board to get rid of Batshuayi, at least for the next 6 months, and get somebody who is more of a target man, who fits Conte's tactics a bit better than Batshuayi. Not saying that Michy is a bad player, because he's obviously he's fit in quite well in Dortmund already with 3 goals and an assist, but I don't think we'd ever see really. I don't think we're ever gonna see a sort of performance that we saw from Giroud today, from Batshuayi. So it's it is perhaps one of those incompatibility things. Maybe Conte can switch up his tactics at some point in the future. Of course, he may not be here in 6 months, so who knows? Who knows? We'll get to all that later, I am sure. Lewin says, not a great performance, but happy for the points. I think that's kind of the general consensus. 3-0 looks good on the scoreboard, but there are certainly some iffy periods there from Chelsea, especially, say, about the first 10 minutes of the first half. Maybe the first 5-10 minutes of the second half. There's certainly room for improvement there. If West Brom maybe were a little more clinical, we would not be looking at a clean sheet, that's for sure. Possibly a very different scoreline even. I mean, there is a chance that Victor Moses' back header gifted to Jay Rodriguez, and it's unclear what Rodriguez was thinking, but he snatched that chance way too quickly. If he takes a touch, drives at Courtois, he has basically all day to pick a spot. So that was certainly a let off there. That was in about the 10th minute. That's not to say that Chelsea were really lucky. I mean, we scored. The one goal we scored in the first half was obviously really nice, with Giroud and Hazard linking up, just as Conte, I'm sure, imagined it when he drew up the plans. Giroud himself missed a very easy chance, which was shades of Alvaro Morata there, shooting straight at the goalkeeper. Zappacosta missed an easy chance as well, or maybe not easy, but certainly one that you would expect the left wing back to score if the left wing back was named Marcos Alonso. Unfortunately, yesterday, he was named Davide Zappacosta, and his finish was not quite on the same level as Alonso tends to do. That was in the first half, and then there's several more chances in the second half before Victor Moses finally got a goal for himself, his only his second of the league campaign, and then Hazard got his 15th goal of the season, which is actually doing really well for him since his career high is only 19, and we're only in February, so he only has to score 5 more goals to hit 20 for the season. Yeah, good question from Bitan, is it? When are we offering the contract extension to Eden? That is possibly the biggest question that anybody can ask at this point, because apparently, despite the 6 months of rumors of how much Hazard is going to get paid, around 300,000 a week, apparently we still haven't actually offered an official contract to him, which seems a little weird. It's with all these rumors. I mean, Hazard's been asked about this all the time. He's said, he's gonna sign as soon as Courtois signs. Courtois says he's gonna sit down this month. He was gonna sit down last month, but then Chelsea got busy doing all the transfer stuff, so they've delayed that to February now, apparently. And then Hazard keeps talking about the contract as well, or keeps being asked about the contract, and he talks in the usual fashion, giving the usual answers. But amongst all that, it's pretty surprising that we haven't even offered like an initial offer, so to speak. We haven't offered an offer. It's a good sentence. Yeah. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I'm hoping it's like tomorrow or yesterday or last week, as soon as possible. I mean, I'm not really sure what's really preventing us from offering him a contract. I mean, the worst thing he says, I'm not ready to sign or whatever, but at least we made the first move, as opposed to just promises or rumors or whatever. It's one of those things that never really makes sense in any of these transfer rumors, contract rumors, all this. You hear all these stories in the media, and half the time there's no actual backing behind it. So it's just one of those. You get used to the fake news around football transfers. Is Conte leaving at the end of the season? Well, everybody seems to think that he is, except for Conte himself, of course. He keeps saying that he's got 18 more months on his contract, and he intends to see out those 18 months. So yeah, I think a lot of it will depend in all reality. I think a lot of it will depend on the next 30 days, the next month or so. We have a stretch of 7 games right now, starting with yesterday's. There's three home games right now with West Brom, Hull City, and Barcelona. And then we have 3 away games and 4, including Manchester United, Manchester City, and Barcelona again. Depending on how we do in this stretch, I think we'll go a long ways towards determining what Conte's fate will be at the end of the season. Because I really don't, despite all the rumors, if somehow we beat Barcelona and maybe go a couple more rounds in the Champions League, I really don't see how or why Conte would be sacked. I mean, he could make all the noise he wants regarding transfers or whatever complaints, depending on how you want to interpret all that. He can talk all he wants, but he also says he wants to see out his contract. So if the board can just like kind of ignore all that complaints or work with him a little bit, this is really not that hard. It's not that hard to see out another year. He's proven to be a top coach already. We have a young team that needs good coaching. We don't have a team like 10 years ago or 15 years ago that, somebody like Ancelotti can just come in and manage the egos and pick all the big names and say, go out there and win some games for us. You can't do that. You don't have an Essien or a Ballack or Lampard, of course, Drogba, all these guys. You have unfinished or not quite fully developed players, like, for example, Bakayoko, everybody's favorite midfielder, Timo Bakayoko, or even somebody like Morata or Christensen. even Conte, all these guys, they're not the finished product, so they need somebody like Antonio Conte to help him grow and help him develop into the players that they can possibly be. So if somehow they can work out their differences, learn to live together professionally, I really don't think that it's nailed on just yet that Conte will be gone. Of course, if we lose to Barcelona, we lose to United, we lose to City, we drop out of the top four. Yeah, he's definitely. I don't think he's staying if that happens, and there's a decent chance that he possibly gets fired even before then. If it looks like that our top four, which is basically the minimum expectation for a season, if it looks like the top four isn't happening, then I don't think Chelsea will hesitate to pull the plug and try to get somebody in to make a late charge. The interim names that have been mentioned are not exactly inspiring. I think Marco Silva is the only one I've really heard, and he started well enough at Hull City last year, and then at Watford this year. But his stock has fallen quite a bit. As far as permanent replacements, the only serious candidate so far mentioned still is Luis Enrique, who will be returning to management this summer. That's for sure. It's just unclear with what team or where. He's also been linked with the Arsenal job, possibly the PSG job, depending on how Emery does there. So, yeah, it's all up in the air. I think the media and all the stories will kind of have us believe that Conte has no future, but I'm holding out hope that we do well this month or so, and then get him into the third season. It's not very common for Chelsea coaches to see a third season, and in Abramovich's tenure or the Roman era, the only coach who has seen a third season has been Jose Mourinho. He's done it twice. Once he lasted into a fourth season for a couple of weeks, and of course last time he got sacked a couple months into the third season. So, if Conte makes it into the third season, that will be a tremendous accomplishment in and of itself already. Would I start Rudiger or Cahill with Christensen and Azpilicueta against Barcelona? Personally, I'd go with Rudiger because of his pace. I'd go with Rudiger just because he seems slightly more comfortable than Cahill on the ball, and I think that's what's going to determine. Sort of, we need somebody who. I don't know. Maybe not against Barcelona, but in general, I prefer Rudiger because of his comfort on the ball. Cahill just makes me absolutely nervous every time he's near a ball. And Cahill also doesn't necessarily strike me as the classic leader. Now, obviously, Cahill has the experience. He was one of the famous heroes of the Nou Camp back in 2012, but that was 6 years ago, and he's not necessarily the same player anymore, for better or worse. So if Rudiger's healthy and ready to go, I definitely stick with the back three that we saw today or yesterday, with Rudiger, Christensen, and Azpilicueta. I think right now that's our best defensive trio. Vitan says Cahill has the nerve. He is the one for Barcelona. I think where Cahill has the advantage is the experience, and my only problem with Cahill is like if the tide turns, so to speak, I really don't see him kind of recovering and helping to solidify the team. Both times now, I want to say, when Chelsea kind of collapsed and gave up a lot of goals in quick succession, he's been the common link in the defensive system. You can put that to David Luiz as well, but I don't think there's any chance of David Luiz playing against Barcelona. So Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really trusting Cahill at the moment. In terms of actual defending, I don't think there's that much difference between Cahill and Rudiger, but Cahill's probably better in the air, but that's one area where we probably don't have to worry too much about Barcelona attacking us. But Cahill, his aerial prowess can sometimes be a weapon at the other end. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe we might need something like a set piece goal or a corner goal to beat Barcelona. That's right, beat Barcelona. Gotta keep the faith. Gotta keep the faith. It's not over yet. I don't know. It's a tough call. Christensen and Azpilicueta certainly are locked in. As far as the third person, maybe go on form, see who's playing better. Interestingly enough, when it was what was it, the Bournemouth game where their striker specifically mentioned in the post-match comments that they were attacking Chelsea's left side because they knew that. So basically, they keyed their pressure on whenever Chelsea's left-sided central defender got the ball, which at the start meant Cahill. So basically, Bournemouth let Christensen and Azpilicueta have the ball, and as soon as the ball went to Cahill, everybody started pressuring him because they knew that he was the weak link, and they knew that they could probably force him into a poor pass or turnover or whatever. But the Bournemouth guy also said that they continued that tactic even when Cahill got switched out, or the left-sided defender got switched out for Rudiger. So, if there's maybe the difference is not as big as I would imagine between Rudiger and Cahill on the ball, but it's a tough call. I suppose this is why they pay Conte the big bucks to make the tough calls and then live with the decision, live with the consequences of your decisions. 3-5-2 for Barcelona, no other go. Yeah, that's certainly a tough call as well, considering we haven't really played the 3-5-2 in some time. It worked really well back for a few games back in the fall, if we remember. Especially the Atletico Madrid game away. I mean, that was basically the pinnacle of the 3-5-2. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense just in terms of packing the midfield. You imagine somebody like Conte, if Bakayoko ever recovers some semblance of form, he could be useful in a game like that to help shut Barcelona down. And maybe toss in a third midfielder, either Fabregas or Drinkwater, who can possibly launch a couple counters. Yeah. I could see a 3-5-2, but my only objection to that would be that we haven't played it in a while. We switched back almost exclusively to a 3-4-3. The only difference has been in the last few weeks as to how we lined up in attack. The Hazard false nine center forward thing is something that we should look not to do ever again. With Giroud in the team, hopefully that won't ever happen now. Keep Hazard as the left winger or as a shadow striker, which is where give him the freedom to do whatever he wants, because that's clearly his best role. Let your most talented player do his talented things, and good things will happen, just like today or yesterday. I keep saying today. Yesterday. We should replicate the Atletico performance. That would be ideal. That would indeed be ideal. Chelsea Journal says Bakayoko with a 90th minute winner. Sounds pretty good. I wonder how the narrative would change then. Although, it was Batshuayi who got us the winner for the Premier League title last season, and that didn't really change much narrative. Torres, of course, got that big goal at the Nou Camp back in 2012, and really that's more of a joke, that his goal. But maybe in 10 years we'll all look back and laugh about the initial struggles of Bakayoko. Who knows? Who knows? We need to figure out his role basically. And it seemed like we found it in the 3-4-3 next to Conte, because he certainly looked lost. Bakayoko did in the 3-5-2. He looked better initially in the 3-4-3, but then that performance against Watford, was it Watford? Yeah, against Watford, that was just that was next level bad. I think everybody kind of agreed with that. We can sugarcoat it all we want, but Courtois said the yellow cards were harsh for Bakayoko in that game, but I mean, it was just bad. It was a disaster waiting to happen. As soon as he got his first yellow, basically everybody knew that the second yellow was not far behind. Sure enough, it wasn't far behind at all, and it would have been harsh. It's always harsh to make a really early substitution, but that possibly called for a harsh substitution at that point. All right, Chelsea Journal is got money on Bakayoko scoring the 90th minute winner. It's unclear if it's first leg or second leg, so either way, it would be pretty impressive. How come Conte doesn't really celebrate when we score goals, unlike last season? Well, right now, I think it's he tends to Conte's moods tend to reflect the mood of the team. It's not, people are wondering, like, they're saying that he's sulking on the sideline or whatever, but he's literally just like another player whenever he's on the touchline. So when things are going well, he's jumping around, celebrating, whatever. When things are not going so well, he's all moody and sulky and whatever. And, maybe that's not the best thing. Maybe he should be trying to, encourage the team. But then also, maybe it's not really the time to go nuts in your celebration, because you did just lose back-to-back games by 3 goals. Just because you beat the worst team in the league by a few goals and, got lucky on a clean sheet, maybe it's not the time to lose your mind just yet. Now, if we score a couple against Barcelona, I guarantee you that we're gonna see some emotion there from Conte. Of course, depending on the scoreline. I mean, if it's 5-0 and we score a consolation goal, he's not gonna celebrate. But if you take the lead or whatever, especially in the first leg, I think we're gonna go see some the old Conte, the craziness back in Stamford Bridge. It's all about judging it's a bit more somber these days, the mood. It might improve later. It might not. Who knows? That's the nice thing about Conte. He's not really putting on a show for, he talked about this last season fairly often, because everybody was wondering, like, oh, why are you doing all this crazy things on the touchline? You're like a madman. And he basically was, said a couple times last season that this just, he kind of loses himself and gets, goes with the flow of the emotion of the situation. So, he's not really out there. At least he says he's not really out there putting on a show for the cameras and setting a narrative, unlike certain other managers who that's all they seem to do ever. But he puts his emotions out there on his sleeve, puts his heart on his sleeve, and see where that goes, see where that lands him. Chuck, welcome, Chuck. I see this is at least my week isn't ruined. All these Monday and Tuesday or Friday games. Yeah, it's been a little weird. We have had 2 or 3 Monday games in a row. I mean, that's pretty weird. And then now we have a Friday game, and then we have a Tuesday game. This is some odd days to be playing, but the Friday game's nice. It's actually, I'm surprised that the FA actually was this generous to schedule a game for us for Friday, to give the team three full days between the FA Cup game and the Champions League game. Now, I don't think we're gonna see any sort of full strength lineup against Hull City. It's the 5th round of the FA Cup, and basically everybody on Hull City is injured these days. I was just reading a headline article that said they have 11 of their first team players are out, which seems to be their entire first team then, including 3 Chelsea loanees who are obviously ineligible, and a bunch of other people injured. So I mean, Hull City are definitely going to come in and roll the scrubs and the B team and the youth, and so that's kind of what Chelsea will be doing as well, I'm assuming. So it's we should be well rested for Barcelona regardless. But it's still nice that the FA actually took this under consideration and picked this game to be on Friday. Or maybe I shouldn't give the FA credit since they don't pick the TV games. It's the TV companies that pick the TV games. But whichever. At least it's for once we don't have to complain about the scheduling. What kind of formation do you think we should play against Barcelona? Well, I think we just talked about this. I would play the 3-4-3 just because that's the formation we've been playing. The 3-5-2 was a thing earlier this season, but we seem to have moved away from it pretty steadily. Part of it, obviously, was because Morata had been injured, and Conte barely trusted Batshuayi in a 3-forward lineup, let alone a 2-striker situation. So maybe now that Morata is back, apparently, and ready and not hurt anymore, that was pretty quick after Conte hinted that he might even be out for the rest of the season, and then Morata suddenly solved his back issues and miraculously recovered. And obviously Giroud is very much a target man as well, and probably could play in a 3-5-2. But if we're getting decent results in a 3-4-3 starting yesterday, I would keep that and go with what we know as opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel again. But if we produce a performance like we did against Atletico in the 3-5-2, then for sure go with that one. Yeah, a front line of Eden, Giroud, and Morata. That'd be something else. I mean, at some point, now that we have Giroud, finally, after 18 months, Conte has 2 strikers whom he can trust. If he doesn't play 2 strikers now, he's never going to. We've called for Costa and Batshuayi, which we saw maybe twice, I want to say. At the very beginning of last season, a couple times we saw Costa and Batshuayi to play together, and we scored a couple goals from that combination, and then we never saw it again. So maybe now with Giroud and Morata, one can play off. I mean, Morata has the skill and the quickness to play off of another striker, so we could put up a couple trees. If we need a desperation goal against Barcelona, put them up there and see what they can do with the 6'2", 6'3" strikers there in defense. I don't even know who Barcelona's defenders are these days, but if it's Piqué, I don't think he's that great. Well, there's another one for Hazard next to Giroud, Morata. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe could be like a 3-4-1-2 with Hazard in the hole behind the 2 strikers. That could be an interesting attacking combination. I mean, I suppose the only problem with the 3-4-3 against Barcelona is who you play next to Conte, because Bakayoko apparently has forgotten how to play football, and I mean, Fabregas is fine, but do we? Well, maybe against Barcelona's midfielders, we wouldn't mind too much his defensive shortcomings, so to speak. But who knows? I mean, maybe played Conte and Drinkwater. I mean, when was the last time Drinkwater had a decent game? It's a tough call. So maybe that would possibly speak to more of a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-1-2. I mean, playing Hazard as behind the 2 strikers, that's basically a 3-4-3, because none of those guys are gonna contribute to a midfield presence. Yes. Personally, I would put Luis next to Conte. Yeah, that's an option. You're not the first one to suggest that I've seen. Um, yeah, and we kind of did that with against Spurs, right at the very beginning of the season. I think the midfield was Luis and Bakayoko, so we could try to do a Conte Luis, and that would certainly uh, be a defensive look, which is probably what we'll need against Barcelona, despite best intentions or whatever. It's time for smart moves as opposed to idealistic moves. But I don't know how favored David Luiz is at this point. It's it could be a bit of a personal situation by now. I mean, David Luiz had low key had a terrible game against Watford, and it was unsurprising to not even or it was not surprising to not see him in the uh, match day squad yesterday. I mean, it was Ampadu on the bench again, not David Luiz. So it's yeah, I don't know if he'd be suddenly be trusted to play midfield, but maybe it's if we're looking for a defensive option, um, not much choice other than to possibly trot out David Luiz and see what happens. What's the worst that could happen? Don't think we're ever gonna see Luiz at defensive midfield, says Chelsea Journal, who of course has already predicted a 90th minute Bakayoko winner, so of course we're not gonna see Luiz at defensive midfield. Barca's midfield is not that great. No real pace, says Lewin. Paulinho, Busquets, Iniesta, Rakitic. Yeah, that Paulinho. Turns out he's a decent player, apparently. That was a surprise. Yeah, I mean, okay, so we're certainly facing Barcelona's midfield is not going to be similar to, say, facing Spurs midfield, where like Wanyama and Sissoko and all these guys who can basically overpower any other midfield in the world. Uh, they'll just pass around us. So whatever, if we need to figure out how to clone Conte in the next week, for real, not just the Conte twins joke, but actual Conte twins, which of course would mean 4 Contes, and then we might have a chance to shut down that midfield. I mean, in a sense, we know how to play against Barcelona, even though we haven't played them in a while. It's Barcelona's Barcelona at this point. We still have Messi, we still have Suarez, whoever else. Iniesta still ticking. So it's the tactics that we need are probably pretty obvious. And yeah, we have a week to figure this out. Hopefully last night's win kind of got some confidence back. A lot of this is confidence. At the margins in knockout competitions are very small. It's we don't have to beat Barcelona in the league. We have to beat them maybe once over the next 180 minutes. It's doable. I mean, Barcelona just drew with whatever Getafe or some other random team in Spain, so it can always happen. Clinging onto the hope that we have a mental edge over Barcelona. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing. It's not something we often play with, the underdog tag. Mourinho was pretty good at building it, even if when we weren't. But it's perhaps not coincidence that the one time we actually won the Champions League, we were decidedly underdogs in almost every round. It's when you have nothing to lose. You get a pretty easy way to motivate yourself. Sometimes you get blown out, and then sometimes you draw 2-2 at Nou Camp with 10 men. It's crazy things can happen, and unfortunately at this point it's not like we're gonna out football Barcelona. So you kind of you have to hope for these intangibles to come into play and make the difference for you. Jared says Piqué, Umtiti, Jordi Alba, and Alex Vidal will be their starting defenders. Nothing to be scared of. Gotta go right at them. I don't know. I think Umtiti is a pretty good defender. Piqué is very much a defender who fits the Barca system. Maybe not so much, a classic defender in terms of actual defending, but I don't know. I mean, they're definitely built to a certain style, so their style is not to play flawless defense. Their style is to dominate you through possession and score through Messi. Chelsea, Barcelona, guaranteed magical moments. Let's hope so. I mean, yeah, I suppose it's guaranteed for at least one of the teams, right? Let's hope it's us. The key will be to stay in the tie, 0-0 or 1-0 to take to the new camp. Yeah, I think if we keep a clean sheet on Tuesday, I think we have a very good chance, because that's generally all we would have to do at the new camp as well. Yeah, I think that will be the key, and I'm sure people will complain that we're not attacking enough and all that goodness and all that stuff, but now is the time to play smart. All we have to do is stop Messi. That's right. Have to have with the correct reading of the situation. Somebody kick Messi and we'll be fine. It should be reminded. Messi should be reminded at every turn that he has yet to score against Chelsea. Fabregas and all these guys need to be calling him every 10 minutes, and just gently reminding him that not even when he had a penalty could he score against Chelsea. So just it's not gonna happen. So just let it go, man. It's written in the stars. Part 2, Parte dos. All right. I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. And then we'll be back on hopefully Friday or Saturday morning, maybe Saturday-ish, after the whole City game on Friday, and we'll do some more previewing of Barcelona, which right now is basically the season-defining game. If we get a result there, suddenly all the options are back on the table. If the unthinkable happens, or maybe not so unthinkable, and we lose by a couple at home, that's going to be pretty tough. But we did lose to Napoli that one time, 3-1, and we still beat them. So you never know. It's not over till it's over. But we don't have to think about that, because we're obviously going to beat them in the first leg, just like in 2012. Even if there is no Drogba, Ramirez to Drogba, the first leg that's often forgotten. What a great game that was. A less memorable game from last night. Should wrap that up with Chelsea winning 3-0. Hazard with his brace to get him 15 goals on the season, which now means that he only needs 5 more goals the rest of the season to set a new career high. Victor Moses even back in the goals and finishing off a Fabregas assist, which is kind of funny because Fabregas was complaining about Moses not finishing his assists off, jokingly complaining on social media a couple weeks ago that Moses hadn't been finishing his chances. Got a bit of a deflection, lucky bounce there on the flick from Fabregas, but cool finish from Moses for Chelsea's second. And then Hazard scored a really nice goal to wrap up all the points. 3 points, 3 goals, clean sheet, back in the top 4. Only 1 point behind Liverpool in third. Only 3 points behind United in second. So that race is wide open. Of course, only 1 point ahead of Spurs in the fifth. So it's second through fifth separated by 4 points. That fight probably will go down to the wire, with Spurs putting on the pressure, as they like to do, and hopefully failing at the very last hurdle, as they like to do. Arsenal remain basically out. They are 7 points adrift of Spurs right now, so they're kind of nailed on the sixth. And unless a lot of teams drop a lot of points ahead of them, they're not going to be a factor. Yeah, so much overdue, much needed win. A decent margin of victory. It was shaky at the beginning, but then got lucky there maybe on that one chance from Jay Rodriguez. Sad to see Daniel Sturridge. Daniel Sturridge picking up another hamstring injury just 3 minutes into this game. Even he got the start, and then he barely completed 2 minutes before picking up another hamstring injury. That's just the story of Sturridge's career right there. Jay Rodriguez came on to replace him, and he missed West Brom's biggest chance on the 10th minute, and after that it was basically all Chelsea in the first half. Similar kind of start in the second half. There was the one chance from Rondon that drew a really nice save from Courtois. I think it was a foul on Christensen, but obviously we've seen those not given, so Christensen needs to be. That's probably the one minor mistake that Christensen has made yesterday. It was good to have him back. I think there's a stat floating around where like Chelsea haven't conceded a goal with Christensen on the pitch in however many hundreds of minutes. And without him on the pitch, we've conceded like 7 in 2 games. So, coincidence? Probably not. It's just he's quickly become basically as important to the defensive line as David Luiz was last year. David Luiz has fallen off of a cliff, figuratively, not in real life. But Christensen has stepped up and has really become. Outside of Azpilicueta, our most important defender. And perhaps you could make an argument that even more important than Azpilicueta. Let's call them both important, and hopefully they're both healthy and ready to go for the rest of the season. Yeah, so, and then Moses' goal settled before Hazard got one as well. Giroud lasted 60 minutes in his first start for Chelsea. It was only his second start in the Premier League all season. So, he's still coming up to full fitness. But very good performance from Giroud. There was a writer of The Guardian, Barney Ronay, who called him a really handsome Diego Costa. And I'm not going to disagree with that assessment. There's like some good-looking forward line there with Giroud and Morata. So definitely signs of promise. Pedro had a really nice two-way game where he dropped into midfield a lot to help with transition. Yeah, good stuff. Zappacosta is not my favorite player or not my favorite position for him on the left, but it's good to see him be a little versatile. I do wonder if and when we're going to see Emerson. I don't know what his fitness levels might be. He was on the bench. And you would have thought with Alonso this time picking up an ankle injury, apparently, or a knock. He twisted his ankle in training, apparently. You would have thought maybe this was the time to put Emerson on there, but possibly Emerson will play against Hull on Friday. So that's something to look forward to. Hopefully we'll see some youths as well against Hull City, like everyone's favorite Callum Hudson-Odoi. The hype train is ready to leave the station. But there's still room. There's still room to jump on the Hudson-Odoi hype train. So, don't be left behind before he heads out on loan in a couple of years, never to be heard from again. No, he's, one for the future there, 17-year-old Hudson-Odoi. But it's fun to see him play, watch him play. So hopefully he gets a chance against Hull. Yeah, so I think that'll do it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the questions. We will be back after the Hull City game to talk about that and preview Barcelona, which, you should probably block off a large chunk of your day for Barcelona right now to get mentally prepared and then deal with the consequences and the fallout afterwards. Because, one thing for sure is, as somebody mentioned earlier, there will be drama and magical moments, hopefully for some of the boys in blue as well, not just the visitors. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you over the weekend. Bye bye.